My granddad is 86 years old and will not accept anything. In an age that's slowly and slowly transforming, he still says things that make me cringe. A man comes on TV, on the news, from Africa, and automatically, without any hesitation, as if it's such a normal reaction, he says, "Who turned out the lights?" It's disgusting. And I love my granddad, don't get me wrong, but inside I feel myself fuming, with fists balled up, remembering when I was 13 and ran to his toilet to cry because Gay Pride was on the TV and he claimed they all should die. Then I got a bit older and questioned his arguments, and when he claimed they all should die, I asked why. My tiny voice quivering, "You can't help who you love," and he scoffed and laughed and said, "What kind of programs have you and your mum been watching?" As if he thinks that they would taint my decision, and my mum has poisoned my innocent little brain with ideas of sex with the same sex is okay. I managed to hold my tongue for too long, and my mum eventually told him. When he asked if I was courting, my mum said yeah, she's called Tamsin. Silence in the room, pure silence in the room. Not a squeak from my granddad as he tried to fathom that his lovely little 15-year-old granddaughter was going out with another woman. And I'm ashamed to say now that I was ashamed back then, as I waited for his delayed reaction. This man who I'd grown up to love and trust momentarily looking at me in disgust. Silence in the room, pure silence in the room, until all of a sudden he chirped up and said, "At least you're not caught in a blackie." Quickly moving on to the next fucking thing that he can assume and insult and treat differently. And I love my granddad, don't get me wrong, but it took me a while to realise that the more I spoke up and said what I thought, the more accepting of the world he tried to become. When he talks about politics, I tell him I don't get it, and when he tries to explain, I tell him I don't get it. And when he tells me to vote Labour, I tell him I don't vote, and I realise if I back up my reasoning for doing so, he sort of starts to get it. When I tell him that I personally won't give money to soldiers' charities because I'm not sure I believe in war, he calls me a hippie, and I won't ignore him anymore. When he says, "You and your cousin," he says, "next you'll be saying you smoke dope on the streets, a bunch of hippies, thinking the world's at your feet, you'll fight for nothing." And I say no. I fight for action in the form of peace and equality, and I can see his closed little brain trying hard to open up to what I'm saying. And I love my granddad, don't get me wrong, because he helped me speak up and tell him what's wrong.